Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, Wednesday morning, May 15th, year 2024, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello show that's been on there since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and then, of course, the likes of you out there that make it your business to enhance and fortify this wonderful concept called public access. With us this morning, Brenda Simmons, and I must add before we even proceed, we really just got to meet each other. There was enough substance there to indicate indeed that an interaction is called for, and with the promising aspects to a conversation full of fruition, semi conclusions, and maybe even some interesting declarations. So, Brenda, first of all, thank you for allowing me to share this wonderful entity here with your presence and willingness to interact on the air. You have your own heritage and experience and past with LTV and with your own show, with your own activities. The extent of your prolificness. Outlook on life from the little bit that I got to know is almost second to none. I'm very very impressed to see also how much you're at ease with including all these kind of mediums into that thought pattern, into that attitude that I'm hoping to learn and to find out more and more when we have this conversation today. So, first of all, good morning. I hope that my coffee did somewhat of a bringing you closer to the doorstep of the awakening.
First of all, I say thank you so much for inviting me. And yes, the coffee is waking me up because I'm really not a morning person. But it's just a pleasure being here. And I do have a show here at LTV called Val Voices of Wisdom. And I just like to have conversation. So I'm here to have a conversation.
Absolutely, by all means. So I was wondering about the because from what I learned, the way in the Tuesday Club, I don't know why Tuesday Club is actually taking place on Thursday, but I always
I
wondered about it.
question that
Yeah,
too.
I said, wait a second, um, but it's like from 0 to 100. You address the group, and I look at you and I say, she's so honest. I
Mhm.
like that. We cannot take that for granted, especially in the face of what our society is facing on a daily basis. Honesty is not something that comes by just as it should, by the way.
Mm.
And with you, it's externalized very comfortably, and it's kind of blending with your personality, which I don't know much about, but I know enough to. I said, okay, this lady is putting me at ease. Your reaction to whatever it is that I was saying or commenting on was very generous. I like that too. I said, my God, like you say, I don't know you. I didn't know you, and you were very generous with me. So I'd like you to share with us that source that makes you make others feel good about themselves.
I think it is my one of my MOs is treat people the way I want to be treated. I think that's the bottom line. The best answer I can give to you is I treat people the way I want to be treated. And I think nowadays, as we know, is so much going on in this world. And I think it's important for us to keep the calm, keep the peace, keep the communication going, keep that place where there's so much a divide going on into this world. And I feel that it's not my mission, but it's just who I am, that I feel like instead of going another way with this, because there's so many times you can get angry, you can get upset, you can just be part of that divide. But I feel like I want to be part of that coming together. I think that's probably where I am. And I have to say, I am love. I think that's what it comes down to. It took me a journey to get to this place because I've been through a lot in my lifetime. But I've come to this place now where I've concluded that I am love.
Yes. And that's a big thing to experience and to kind of find. Maybe it's a scary feeling also because we always think it would take a lifetime to achieve certain things, and suddenly
Mhm.
halfway through we're already there. So what do we do with these findings? How do we adapt to it? How prepared how prepared are we for this avalanche of goodness, so to speak? People don't realize that an avalanche will kill you no matter what, whether goodness, badness. The nature of avalanche is to bury you alive. Are we mentally ready for that? For all this goodness coming our way?
I have to say, um, I'm not sure if I really think it's an avalanche of goodness. I think this is
Maybe an aspect of it.
it's an aspect of it, but I think the avalanche of it, I think to me is hope for me, that I hope that would happen. But personally, I have to be honest, as you said, I challenge sometime on a daily basis of staying in the place that I am because of things around me, things that are said, things that I see, and our history as a Black person. So that keeps me, though, sometime bringing myself back to the place I am today. Because sometimes my thoughts and things that I discover, or things that I know, they have this saying, ignorance is bliss. And I've dug a lot in my history, and I've known a lot, and I begin to understand a lot, and I've concluded a lot of things about our history in this America, that according to us, a person of color. And for that place, I have stopped to say just what you said. Well, how do you handle this, Brenda? With all this information of our history here in this America, how do you handle this? So that's where I try to stay on the positive,
Yes.
and bring the love, and bring the communication, and bring the oneness that is so needed today.
Yeah, and also it's the ability to bring a sense of resentment into a constructive mode, and
Absolutely.
not necessarily combative. Yeah, I mean combative is okay. Aggression is okay sometimes. I mean I see it. I have enough kids to tell you, of an age that aggression for them is something that they were born with. Sometimes I do ask my kids. Uh, well, I asked them a question. I'm sure I cannot get an answer to, but I like them to wonder together with me.
Hmm.
And so, who taught you that? Who taught you about this roughness? Not that it's bad or good. I was just surprised. I don't remember introducing that into the lives of my kids. Uh, so. Yeah, that's why we know when I learned jujitsu, I was always taught to always consider the first and most important option to run away,
Mm.
to really run. So,
Hmm.
so believe it or not, there's a technique to run away that
Hmm.
they teach you how
Hmm.
to like hold that thought and you're running away. I'll
Hmm.
be right back, never to be seen again.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, even when I first arrived in New York in 1983, they said if there's a problem here, you go there.
Uh-huh.
Is if there's a problem there, you go here.
Absolutely.
Central Park, you never go. Day, night, you never go. In 1983,
Hmm.
you never
Hmm.
go there
Hmm.
unless you want to trouble.
Yes,
So
yes,
I
yes.
learned, and I came with just that limited experience into. So how when you work with the world in order to elevate the awareness of your people, how do you work with your people for that sake? In addition to working with the world for the sake of your own people.
That's a very good question. And because I'm honest, okay, first I'm going to say, I think it's very important for us to educate ourselves and to understand the world. And I think part of what I've been challenged with is growing up um, with parents that came through the Great Migration, parents that were in the South and dealing with Jim Crow. So then they have the mindset of somehow coming here with that. And so you kind of been in, we're a product of how we grew up,
Yeah, kind of
basically.
rightfully so, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, rightfully so.
Hmm.
But I was a type of child that I was always very curious, and I was always very obedient, because back in the day it's very different than how young people are today. They question their parents and whatever, and I kind of had allowed my children to kind of, evolve to that. But back in the day, you kind of didn't really question the parents too much. You kind of like went with the flow. But it was something about me that always was curious about maybe what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is something more to this. So the bottom line is, say for instance, I've shared this example a few times. My parents, so mainly my mom, said that she didn't want us, never want us to go down Job's Lane in Southampton.
I wonder why.
And I'm going to share. And I didn't understand why at first, but we were just obedient. We don't go down Job's Lane. So I was in high school, and I think I was a junior at that time. And and you're in high school, you do what you do in high school. And we were hanging out one night, and it was a group of us, and we decide, what the hell, we're going to drive down Job's Lane. What's the big deal? So we drive down Windmill Lane. Those who know Southampton, you'll understand who I'm talking
Yes.
about.
Hmm.
Driving down Windmill Lane and make the left on Job's Lane. So we're driving down Job's Lane, and I see these mannequins in the windows all dressed up. And the thought comes to me, well, what's the big deal? What is the big deal? Why couldn't I, why mom didn't want us to come down here? Well, we get to the end of Job's Lane to make the left down Main Street. And I don't know if people are ready for this, but a gentleman is coming down South Main Street, and he says to us, "What are you in people doing here?"
Really?
Yes. And this was like in 70. I graduated in 73, so now everybody knows how old I am. Um, this is my honesty again. So I think it was probably, must have been like 71, 72. That's the year it was. And at that very moment, I knew why mom didn't want us to come down. She didn't want us to be exposed to that.
Yes.
But at the same time,
But it's an awakening,
it was
maybe.
exactly, Haim. It was an awakening for me because you learn things. And the other thing I want to mention, and I just thought of this, I think I'm at a place in my life where I'm reflecting on my life actually. And I remember it's supposed to be maybe 62. So I had to be like 5 or 6 years old. So now you guys really know how old I am. And I was on the floor in my living room with my cereal watching cartoons on my black and white TV. So I go to get another spoonful, and I look down, take a spoonful of my cereal, and I look up, and the TV flash was gone. No more Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. Now what I see is police officers and dogs
Yeah.
hitting and abusing people that look like me.
Hmm.
So I was so frightened because I'm looking at this and I'm saying, "Oh my God, what?" I saw them with the hose, and they were spraying the hose on people, and they were being, thrown against the buildings, and they was rolling across the streets, and etc. And I was frightened, and the thought came to me. A couple of thoughts came to me was, "Oh my God!" I mean, you have to understand. I'm like maybe 10 years old, and I'm saying those people look like me, so they're gonna do that to me and my mommy. And then the other thought was the police officers had just came in our classroom
Hmm.
and told us they were there to
To,
protect and serve
yes, yes.
us.
So that was a conflict
So
in
I
your head
was,
already.
as a young child, you have to
Yes.
understand
Oh yeah.
the mindset. I was so confused. But I look about that now and I wonder, is that part of why I am an activist and an advocate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's, if I dare say, it's your personality as a human being. Probably, even if you weren't a person of color, you would find an avenue to work in the same attitude and fashion that you're doing now. You probably, your spirit, your soul, your emotions, your social outlook would have led you to that.
Mm,
I believe in that.
mm,
But I just want to share with you also that I paid my fair share of going through being exposed to the elements, supposedly.
I'm sure.
When I arrived here in 1983, the Spanish community was very, very limited, very nothing to write home about. And I remember once that moment that you described, my moment maybe is a little kind of less severe, but still affected me to no end. Um, so I was what? I was 23. Now I'm revealing my age.
It's
But,
honesty today. Hello, hello.
honestly, but I remember being invited to a dinner party, and I dated this gorgeous woman. It was like just so beautiful, and I wasn't bad at all. Those damn, I was like, we were just this kind of couple of dreams. And we're having dinner, and if you look around, you see civilized people, intelligent, definitely sensitive,
Where were
and
you? Where were you here?
yeah, in
In New
East
York?
Hampton,
In
yeah,
East
in East
Hampton.
Hampton, in Springs, yeah.
Okay.
Um, and I was introduced to everyone. Everyone's smiling, we're talking, whatever. And suddenly, the owner of the house, which actually, the owner of the house, they didn't live there. It's his daughter and her husband lived there, and he came to visit from the south. And they're sitting there, and suddenly, out of the blue, he approaches me and points to me and something to the extent of, who do you think you are coming here to our community to steal the jobs from? I don't even
Are
know.
you
I
kidding?
don't even know. I didn't really quite know what
What triggered
does
it?
he want from me. Like it was very strange, so strange that I wasn't really paying attention to the extent of what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was shocked. My girlfriend was, I felt her blood is boiling.
Wow.
And I'm looking right, looking left. And then after like 5 seconds, he wants to go back to normal. Like, okay, so with this and that. And then I was getting ready to speak my piece, and my girlfriend is stopping me, and she said to him, well, at least you have to hear what he has to say. And I let them have it like nobody's business. I don't know. God was with me, giving me those ability to be eloquent
Mm.
and make the point to the point,
Mm-hmm.
and make him feel bad about himself without losing my cool, my
I'm just
calm, and
curious.
my
What did you
style.
share with him?
Well, I said, well, first of all, if anything, you should thank me for importing my highly effective work ethics.
Mm.
Look around, I said.
Mm.
Look around. The level of readiness of the typical American is probably next to zero. There's no willingness to invest, to work hard, to justify your earning, your salary, to respect your surroundings, to respect people around you, and definitely not to complain. I import that. If anything, you should thank me for coming and giving you a crash course in how it's supposed to be.
Wow.
And I said, uh, and I added to the equation. I know that I'm Jewish, and I'm sure it has something to do with that. It's just that
Mm.
now, if you had any plans to continue or carry on into that arena, you know better not to do it. But and then the best part of all this is that my girlfriend and I kissed each other in the lips, like we were so proud of each
I
other.
love
I
it.
was proud of her,
I
of
love
saying
it.
to him, hey, wait a
I
second,
love it.
you did your thing, now let him
I
answer.
love it.
And then she realized the extent of my answer was so eloquent. We were like having dinner. Like,
That's wonderful. That's
and
wonderful.
then his daughter, apologized later and whatever. But it carried on everywhere,
Hmm. Yes.
everywhere, everywhere I went. I didn't understand what people wanted from me.
And this is the thing, Haim, that I don't know if people really understand that it's a constant and can be almost an everyday sometime thing that have some level of discrimination or racism or whatever. And the thing that happens that I've learned too, you can't even, I don't want to say you get used to it, but what I've realized too, when you've said anything, is always like, they poo poo it away, but they don't understand what it does to you inside. It's something that um, can be disturbing. But that's where I don't think I really fully answered your question the other time, was that's where, as people of color, we have to empower ourselves to know who we are and respect ourselves. And I think that's what I've shared, and really relayed
And maintain it. The
and
part of
maintain it.
maintaining is not a small task.
It's not easy. It's
Yeah,
not easy
no,
at all. It's not
no,
easy at all. But I think it's important, and it's almost like you challenge yourself, to stay there, But I think, as everybody know how old I am now, you just get to that place in your life where certain things, you choose your battles. I guess that's the best way to say it. You choose your battles, but at the same time, I remember someone told me, I worked for the county, Suffolk County, for like 25 years. And I think I was like 20 years old or so when I was there. And I remember this older woman said to me, when you get 40, you're going to start being more bolder saying what you want to say. When you get 50, you get a point, you're going to say whatever you want to say, and
yes,
I'm at that place. But of course, I do things with integrity and excellence. So I usually take the time out, but I usually confront things now. I
yes,
don't let things just go.
yeah, yeah,
I just don't accept things anymore, but I also choose whether or not it's worth the battle.
yeah. And you know what? I don't know if you know Steve Settering. I don't know if you remember her. She was a very well-known poet, musician, artist, everything. And another incident, very strange, in one of the poetry reading that she invited this Irish celebrity to come and recite poetry in the gathering of poets and all this. And she was my mentor there as my
Are
poetry
you a
mentor.
poet too?
Yeah, oh yeah,
So am
big
I.
big deal,
We
big
got to
time.
come back and do some
Yes, oh
poetry
yes, we can do
for
it now.
sure.
But then I remember this was the era where I used to spend all of my money buying leather jackets. I had a weakness for leather jackets. I used to go to this West Village. There was a special store there and go and buy my things. Oh my God, it was
I'm
like,
laughing because I have a thing with leather too. So
yeah. So I remember in this party, I had this wonderful leather jacket, and if someone was to look at me, would say, "This guy doesn't look rich. How could he afford this jacket, really?" I mean, something like that. But when you're crazy for something, you spend your money. Suddenly, and this is exactly a precise description of what happened, I hear someone whispering in my ear, "Who do you think you are coming here with your $400?" That was like 1987, 88. "With your $400 jacket parading yourself." And I'm
you
like,
said buried in yourself?
parading
Oh,
yourself.
parading yourself.
And I'm like, what the
Wow.
F is going on here?
Wow.
And,
Wow.
in those years, I had a violent nature.
Mhm. Mhm.
I would be like someone who wouldn't think twice, elbowing his face.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like, what do you want from me? Like, did you earn the right to get so close to me anyway? So I look at him, and I did something that I was so proud of myself. And I told him, correction, $700 jacket. And it was the truth.
I love it.
And then I told Steve Settering, uh, weeks later,
Uh-huh.
I mentioned that because, in those days I was a physical therapist. There was like, I had my accounts, this, that, and I used to barter with Steve that she would mentor me and all this, and I would give her massages. That was
Mhm.
like a
Mhm.
great deal and all this. And I told her about it, and she made me write a series of poems
Really?
to summarize this encounter.
So that's art therapy. That's
Yes,
like art therapy.
yes. I'm not in this stage anymore that I need it as a therapy. I would kind of maybe run it in my
Oh
mind
no,
and
no,
let
I
it be.
understand. I
But then it
understand.
was because we were building up our infrastructure,
Mhm. Mhm.
poetic infrastructure. So everything was important to implement. Today, you just take 1 point from here, 1 point from there, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good
yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah.
But let's just say that, do you, uh, do you accept into your life the obviousness of what poetry provides to us, especially if we have a struggle, if we have a journey to make a point? for the world to know, to become acquainted with what certain people, certain groups, and me as listen, I'm Israeli and I'm Jewish and I'm an American, and
Okay,
so
because
look how
I
many
think
reasons the world have to hate me
yeah.
and to chase me.
Oh my
They
gosh.
want to get me from all directions. If I'm
Wow.
not Israeli, then I'm an American. If I because I hold this passport or that passport, or because I'm Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
So how do we accept all that which is clichéic, and all that which is serious and meaningful, and all that which is sophisticated and simple, in order to make that point, to help us make that point?
You mean regarding poetry?
Yeah, writing poetry and just in that form of expression to further your cause.
Well, two things I'll answer that with. Poetry for me is expressing my inner feelings. And also, poetry for me is making a point of what I see in this world. It helps me to, that's part of my advocacy, I guess, is making that. But also, I'm people who know me in Southampton, I readily write letters to the editor. And because I'm the founding executive director of the Southampton African American Museum, I used to say, "Oh, Brenda, you better be careful because you don't want to, you know, destroy or affect the museum." But at the same time, again, I'm at a place where I feel like it's about truth, and sometimes people are ready to hear the truth. Of course, you hear they have this saying, you're not ready to hear the truth. But I think sometimes nowadays, some people are ready to hear the truth. But I think sometimes it's important to put it out there. And sometimes somebody will read it and be enlightened, and somebody would not read it at all. So that's my way of getting expressing myself is through poetry and through letters to the editor. And plus, as the founding executive director of the museum, I've used that place as well to really share our history and how important that the legacy that we've left as a Black community and the contributions we've made in this world.
Yes. So that's a great point to relate to the museum in Southampton. And you know what? Many times in the past, when I used to, let's say, drop my car to change my tires there next to McDonald's, I would walk all the way to get those cookies there and the coffee,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and then of course I would pass by the museum at its various stages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always stood there for a minute longer, to kind of wonder about it. And then I end up meeting you, that you were like the force behind it. And so share with our public out there the nature of this entity, and what it stands for, and what is it that is available for the public as far as its messages and existence.
First, I want to thank you for even stopping and wondering of the place, because so many people have shared with me over the years that they used to say, "Why is that place even still there?" And on that note, it was originally a barbershop. And I want to basically say Emmanuel Seymour was the person who came through the Great Migration in the late 40s and 50s, and he purchased that property in the Hamptons. I mean, when I do the tours and when I hear every time I hear myself say that, I get an empowerment or an honor to hear and say that, because for him to come to Southampton from the South, he came from North Carolina in the late 40s, escaping Jim Crow and coming to Southampton, purchasing property, and he built that building as a barbershop. Um, he built it half a barbershop and half a beauty parlor. And the beauty parlor was run by my auntie, Evelyn Baxter. I'm going to give a shout out to her. She's no longer with us. But it was a half barbershop and half beauty parlor. And it was a place of, during that time, a place of a community that we could come to, um, like a community center per se. And it was a place that people came and they felt comfortable. I'm explaining during the time, it was the 40s and the 50s. So it was still a little tension going on around that time. So fast forward, um, I also worked for the village of Southampton. I was assistant to the mayor in the village of Southampton for 11 years with Mark Epley. I want to give him a shout out as well. And a letter came across his desk to tear the building down. And there was a part in the legislation that talked about um, how to historically designate a building, and it had all the different things it talked about aesthetics and this and that and the other, but it was a small portion that said if it was significant to the community. And so that's what I took out. And on the other side of the building, there used to be a juke joint restaurant. So I found an old juke joint singer. It was back in the 40s and 50s. I interviewed her, I interviewed a few band leaders, and I went back before the Architect Review Board, and that's how the place was historically designated. Actually, the first African American site in the Hamptons to be historically designated. And I always like to add now is also the first Black barbershop to be transformed into a museum in the country. But it took me 16 years.
Amazing. Amazing.
16 years. And I want to also add, I was actually born and raised in Southampton. So I guess my story prior to that, you probably figured that out already. But it was a journey. And I have to say, my compassion to save this building because I want to leave a legacy for our community. Because when I travel,
Because
and
it's a no-brainer.
it is a no-brainer for some people. But I'm gonna tell you, it was a challenge. I had a lot of pushback, a lot of challenges for all of the community. I want to make a point of that for all the community, because at one point it was like taking away the barbershop from the community, and the local people wasn't too happy about it because they really didn't understand all the details of what was
Oh yeah,
happening.
it's a social entity.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
But I was, my passion for it was one thing, but my knowledge of how to run a museum was a whole nother thing. So National Preservation Long Island, or National Preservation of United States, I think, can't remember the name exactly. National Trust Preservation. I want to get the name right. I was connected to them, and they had a lot of workshops that I could attend to learn about how to run a museum. And so I was able to get scholarships, and I traveled all over the United States, different areas to do workshops and learn and train how to run this museum. So I made myself, I put myself in that place because it's one thing to have the compassion for it, but I want to have the knowledge of how to do this. So with all of that said, I'm not going to go into details today, but it was a challenge even getting the 501c3. So I didn't know all of those things, but I was able to accomplish all of those things. And I think it was, no, I'm not going to say I know it was June 2021 was our grand opening. And it actually happened to be the same weekend that Juneteenth was made a national holiday. So, and I also want to shout out CMX Sammy. He's the architect that he was with me the whole time, those 16 years, encouraging me and pushing me to keep going because many times I felt like giving up. But I want to make sure I do a shout out to CMX Sammy too, who was an awesome architect. And if you have a chance, you have to please come by. You can go to the website www.saamuseum.org and you can book a tour. Officially, it will be open on May 24th, and we'll have an art exhibition reception on the 25th of May. So
Oh,
please
that's
come.
good. That's Saturday. Yeah,
And
that's
it's
not good.
245 North Sea Road.
Yes, that's fantastic. But I think this topic in itself is so rich, so like unlimited in how many angles you can kind of approach it and decipher and try to decipher it and
Mm-hmm.
all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's so charged that it's actually offering a very unique level of simplicity because we
Mm-hmm.
spoke of it's a no-brainer and all this, and it's the same token with me. I remember that I trying to accomplish my early stages, my early steps in the world of art. Um, I was. I had no infrastructure to aid me to get there,
Mm-hmm.
or not not even that to aid me to think that can even can begin to think and forget about beginning and struggling in the process itself. Do I belong to that? I remember the level of fear and anxiety. I think my anxiety attack started not because of my army service, but because of my introduction to the world of art.
Mm. That's
I
funny.
remember, like, say, wait a second. I had on one hand, I had my girlfriend telling me, "I think you got something here. Share it with the community."
Mm.
And I said, "No, I don't know what you think."
Was it a fear that you wouldn't be accepted, your art wouldn't be accepted, or what kind of art would people like, and that was that the fear?
My fear was, my greatest fear was that I will be making a fool of myself. That's something that really scared me. That I will enter that zone and people will say, "What's this? Who's this guy? What are you doing? How dare you?" Kind of thing. Something like that.
Let me just say this real quick, if you don't mind. That's something that I've always looked at, because of course art is art, and everybody has their own perception of art. But I've seen some art that, I don't want to say the wrong thing here. I've seen some art that I think more so the artist is known by other people, and so that's how they're supported. I mean, I'm looking at this piece of art behind you that's yours, and
And behind you too.
the time I sat here, I was admiring this
Yeah,
piece,
yeah,
not even knowing that you did
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
and it's awesome.
Yes. Well,
But
thank you.
the thing that I'm trying to say is, if you said your name, oh, do you know Haim, his art, and some people don't know you,
Yeah,
but because of a name, sometime
yeah.
the art is more emphasized
Yes,
and more
and
popular, and it's a high price opposed to what you'll see, and everybody has their own taste too, I
I know. But
guess.
living in the East End was the fact was that I really realized that I live in a community where everyone and his uncle is a good artist.
Yes,
Actually,
you're right. You're
that
right.
scared me.
Yes,
I
I
had
hear
no
you.
background, no education.
Mm.
I had, I was brave. I had guts. I had experience in writing poetry. I come from a family of poets,
I didn't know that.
I remember. Uh, if my father earned my respect in the face of all the crazy things that took place that I had reasons to resent him, and what that was when my sister published her first poetry book. I remember this guy, 6'3", gorgeous, smart, rough, wild, non-compromising, standing there, welcoming people to this gathering of releasing the book, with a red rose in his hand and a copy of the book, forcing everyone to buy the book,
Wow.
leaving no options. There are no options here.
I
so, so either that or I'm going to have to punch you in the face.
love it.
And then he said, "I'm going to have to punch you in the face anyway." So even if you buy it, but it was just something so genuine about his acceptance of that. He called it a gesture.
Mm.
My sister's creativity was considered by him as a gesture, and I was very touched by it, because in
Mm.
the same token I said, "My God, this guy never came to me and said, well, he told me and he showed me that he loves me to no end, but he never said, oh, I see that I noticed your talent about this, or something about the creative zone." No, never never acknowledged it, never mentioned it, never. And I remember once when I tried to do something, he said, "What are you doing? Stop doing that. That doesn't look good," or something like that. Things like that. Um, but in that sense, I came with that experience that gave me some sense of durability. I can go through it. I can survive it and all this, but I didn't want to go through it, surviving it while I'm fighting and struggling and all this. I
Mm.
I hated struggles.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sometimes I just weigh it and I said, well, if this is how much I need to pay for to achieve this, maybe I'm better off not doing it.
Mm.
And then also I grew up with certain things that caused me, even though I would be the most good looking guy in the room, I would feel like people are looking at me and saying, "Who's this loser?" I mean, I accepted that realization into my life.
But where do you think that came from? I'm listening at you, and this might get a little bit deeper, but I'm going to go there. I'm listening at you talking about your reaction or your relationship with your father. And I know there's love there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go there, but I'm thinking about my relationship with my dad, where I never ever heard him tell me he loved me. I never was a little girl that was in my
But you
daddy's
know he
lap.
did.
I knew he did, but at the same time, without getting too personal, I went through a stage in my life where he wasn't pleased with what I did. And
And that kind of create even more distance.
you know what? I'm at a place in my life. I don't care. I'm going to say it. I got pregnant when I was like 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, it was probably one of those things, looking for love in all the wrong places. My dad was really never around. And I'm not saying that was an excuse, but the bottom line is, he was doing his thing with other women. I'll just say it that way. And I love my dad, and he's not longer with us, but he knows I love him. I love your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for him to actually basically um, demoralize me and just really just make me feel like I was nothing the whole 9 months I was pregnant, to be honest. And I can't believe I'm sharing this on the radio today. But anyway, I'm going there. So with that, but it wasn't till fast forward. I mean, it wasn't, I didn't really understand it for think that my dad really loved me. But see, people, I found out even later on some things that my dad went through as a child, because that's what I end up doing, because I used to be a counselor as well, that people are reacting, or people are who they are from what they also experienced. So that's what I finally tried to figure out. Why isn't my dad like this? So I end up finding out actually from him.
I can't believe you describe it this way, because that's how I would describe about my father,
See,
exactly word by word.
that's what I felt. That's why
Yeah,
I
oh
felt like
yeah,
I want to share that
they
with
don't
you.
know better.
They don't.
And then I searched and wanted to get to where you wanted to, and I got some
Me
answers. I
too.
remember with my cousins and with my uncle and all this, and the things that they told me Sunday. I realized, oh my God, really? At age 9, he was sent by my grandfather and my grandmother to go to another city in Israel and to
That's
spend
almost
time
the
with his
same thing
uncle,
happened.
and
Oh
nobody
my
knew where
God.
he was for 18 months, and only God knows what pedophiles, what things they did to him, what kind of culture, what kind of accountability. And who am I to judge this guy? But this, in the same token, I allowed myself to be disappointed, because I would expect him to man it, to overcome it, and to
Exactly.
say that's why when he was alive in the midst of his suffering and causing suffering to others, I said, how did you, and what convinced you that you can bring 5 kids to the world? You are the antithesis of what one would envision being a father of 5. How did that happen?
We
Now I
have
have 5. So
I'm a family of five too, but I have two children, but
yeah,
I have a family of
yeah.
five.
But now I understand. I understand that. I understand it. Yeah. Well, I'm more equipped to be a new age father, and and the age and the era and the technology and whatever. Very easy to make things happen. All
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
but still the fundamentals are one and the same. They're the same struggle. So now I seek forgiveness. Forgive me that I
Exactly.
thought that about you. Forgive
Exactly.
me that I belittled you. I mean, in my mind, even though I express love to him all the time, and it's fading into the thin air, as it should, because it was standing in my way for the longest time. My 6 year younger sister still living it as if it happens now, and no one can save her from this kind of quicksand.
Well, that's why I'm going to share just briefly the outcome of all of this. Um, when I decided to find out, I went to search, and I was trying to talk to my aunties and this and that and the other. And just so happened, it happened to be my father who ended up telling me. And he shared with me, I think he said he was 5 or 6 or 7 years old, or whatever old he was. And he kept seeing this picture in this room of his parents' house. And I understand why I'm such a pain when I'm gonna ask questions too, because that's how he was. He finally said he got an answer from his mother. He found out that the people that raised him was his grandparents. It wasn't his mother. but he thought all along it was his mother. So this picture that was in this room was actually his mother who had passed away. So he freaked out.
Amazing.
He said, I was like, I can't have two mothers. Why? You know, he really bugged out. He was switched to one family to the other. He was abusive. He was angry. All that anger and all that.
Feeling betrayed after the fact.
Yes, yes. But it wasn't till my mom had passed away. Um, we almost lost the house. That's a whole nother story. But my dad was now having to live in Riverhead at a uh, 55 and over place where I thought, you know, he would be happy there and whatever. The long story short, um, he ended up going to Florida to my sister's because it almost took me out because I was trying to take care of him, you know, working a full-time job in Riverhead as a director and going to make sure he was okay, taking him to the doctors, taking him here and da 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 da. And
But what a privilege to do that.
it really was. Well, see, at the time though, because of how he treated me, I still had that
It
hanging
was,
on
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
But the
It
other
was still
thing,
fresh in your head.
but the other thing that kept me, and I'm not going to cry right now, my mother always said, no matter what, Brenda, he's your father. And so that helped me.
That's a great point.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, yeah.
So that kept me balanced to take care of him no matter what. And plus, biblically, you're taught to honor your father and your mother. That was also the
Yeah.
other thing that was in, you know, so I honored that. So the long story short, when he went, he had ended up going to Florida to my sister's. And I remember he had had triple bypass. He was, you know, he was on his way out. And I ended up going to visit him in Florida because I felt like I needed to. Well, this is not the story. The bottom line is a trustee that I worked with. We had a conversation and we were talking about our parents, like we're talking like now about experience with our parents. And he said to me, maybe you need to go see your father. And I said, Paul, I said, I'm good. Me and my dad are good now. We're good. He says, no, I'm going to pay for you a ticket to go to Florida. Went to Florida. I was with my dad and all of this love because I'm a love person. I never forget my sister picked me up from the airport. I want to go directly to where he was. And she says, no, we're going to go home first. I'm tired. I said, no, well, drop me off. I'll walk there. When he came, his hands, his skin was all scaly. I went to the front desk. I got lotion. I lotioned him down. And my sister said to me, I hope you're not going to get used to this because I'm not going to be lotioning you down
Yes.
like Brenda's doing because I don't be
And
doing
then
that.
he's going to be disappointed.
But I said, look, this is who I am. This is what I do.
yeah,
I'm going to do this for
oh my
daddy, you
God.
know. But I never forget the day I was leaving. I hugged him, and he said to me, "Pray for me."
Yeah.
But the bond that I had for it was like that moment
Yes.
that I had gotten past all of that. Matter of fact, it's actually when I was taking care of him in Riverhead is when I finally got past this doing it for my mom, and I was doing it because I love him.
Yes, of
That
course.
love that I'm that's in me came out, and I said, I start thinking about everything that he's gone through. And I mean, I would go to the apartment where he was during the day, and he was like in his room, and the room was dark. It was like, lunchtime. But I realized he was going through all this stuff of
Of
his
course.
past.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we all do
Absolutely.
that now.
And all these things that you described, they were pre-existing. It's that we were not aware that they are. Whether it's
Exactly.
the love for them, but it's the, with my father, it was, heavy on drugs, and
My dad was an
but
alcoholic,
yeah,
so same thing.
but I can tell you horror stories from here to the end of eternity, and it's like, and even like you to think about. My father doing heroin, for example, like
Wow.
where does that come from?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
used to ask myself, where did that come from?
Oh.
Where
Mm,
did that come from?
mm,
That's what I wanted to ask.
mm,
I asked questions that I didn't really ask. I didn't get answers, and maybe I'm better off not. But I remember telling him, I'm willing to dedicate myself for you, so you can erect yourself from this rubble. But then I realized, yeah, well, it's nice to hear myself say that, but the reality is the reality. And I was just trying to salvage whatever it is that I can salvage, because on one hand my mother was non-wavering, completely dedicated, devoted to him no matter what, even though everyone around her said, why just leave and go, let him die, man. It's like, and on the other hand I was like her, and then I decided, I remember having a conversation with my mom. That was in 1983. It was 2 months 3 months before I came to the United States. um, I told her, I cannot do this anymore. And she said, "But I need you."
Wow. I know. I know. I know.
And then I said, you see, you come to a realization that all the love in the world cannot help you. That means I told her, all the love you have for me cannot help me once he's going to die, and the damage will be so incredible, I won't be able to get out of it. And your love cannot serve as a remedy to that.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to take this radical step. And so you cannot ask for help. I want to live here because I live here,
Mm-hmm.
because there were like separate sections, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And later, after I thought about it, I was like, you don't know how much I cried years later. Then I went to the American embassy to ask for a visa because I always wanted to come to America to travel. I said, what's better than traveling? I didn't have money, didn't have just thoughts, just dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, no, they're not going to give me a visa. It was just like I went in, I got out there with a visa.
Wow.
And I came to my mother and I said, I bought a ticket and I'm leaving at this date. Then my uncle came, another guy, 6'7", an assassin in the underground of the early days of the inception of the state of Israel, a fighter, and then how come you're leaving your mother and all this? And I said, you stay with her. I'm leaving. So a month before I left, my father passed away at home and all this and this and that. And I remember there was a sigh of relief in the midst of complete mayhem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was a drop of sanity in an environment soaked with insanity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I introduced myself to New York City, it was madness in 1983 here.
Oh yeah.
It was nothing compared to the hellhole that I came from.
I hear you.
The 42nd Street looked like a playground for me. With
Wow.
all these, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Central Park was like, nobody's going to touch me. Nobody's going to
Wow.
get near me.
Wow. Wow.
Things like that. I felt like
Mhm.
very durable,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
fit for the task.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what I want to, if we abandon the emotions now and the tears,
Mm-hmm.
go back to the essence of our discussion and talking about there's so much that love is required to be a part of that which we want to accomplish. Your museum stretches all the way to the extent of the Museum of the United States of America and the entire concept of how dare they bring in these people from their homes to come and slave in the fields of America, thinking that this is just a normal thing to do. We have the right to say, how dare they? What made them think that they can get away with it, which they did?
And how they did this. This is a topic now. You're touching on it, so I'm going to
Yeah,
go
but
there.
just to finish the sentence,
Go ahead,
but
love.
we have to we had to rationalize it and make it more practical so we can take it one step further from that point of wondering
Mm-hmm.
how come, how dare they,
Right.
and all this.
Right.
So in order to make it practical, in order to advance and to achieve awareness and on all the other things, we need to be technical, we need to pause, we need to be effective, we need to weigh the options, we need to be kind of normal people in the
Exactly.
midst of kind of crazy reality
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
unfolding in front of our eyes.
What has empowered me is to find out who my people really are, because basically my understanding, not to get too deep in this again, is that we are an intelligent, awesome people, but to allow them to demean us and to make us be as cattle and just property, they had to make it look like we weren't intelligent, that we were not who we are. So that's the turn for me, is knowing that I'm a queen, and we came from queens and kings, not just slaves.
Yeah.
Because even when I say about, when someone talks about our people, automatically it goes about being slaves. We were slaves and yeah, all of that. But my point is this: we were kings and queens.
Mm-hmm.
We were
You still
empowered,
are.
and we still are. Exactly. And I am a queen. Matter
Oh,
of fact, in St. Martin, where I spend my winters, that's how we address each other as kings and
I
queens.
accept that about you at face value. There's
Thank
no,
you.
but whether you believe it or not, we did almost 54 minutes on the air. Oh yeah, it's going
I love
fast.
it. I
Let me
love it.
just mention we're sitting here with Brenda Simmons on Wednesday morning, May 15th, year 2024. Maybe if I can indulge you for you to read just a little segment, would you like to read that?
What is it, a poem?
Yes.
I have to get my glasses just
Okay,
for
you go.
1 second.
Okay.
I'm at that age, as you guys already know. But I would love to read your poem.
It's just a little bit of that's how I uh,
Okay, it's called Earthquake Without a Planet 2. Present. Remaining level headed and heart bringing of an impeding ice age's chill. High esteem gradually erecting a much needed sonic barrier, essential for the adaptive sensors of shifting tides and twists of fate. Envisioning a pathway, times settled soaked at the edges. Considerations not sparing in sharing the wealth of wisdom. Slow motion, free based exhaustion, and heightened pleasure in presence, yearning for old fashioned endurance. Compl-
contemplating.
contemplating what I should, would, must, and prefer to think, choosing what fits, what I favor, what's mostly likely in my mind's barrel. A bounty journey unfolding, a visual feast, rugged terrain, at every footstep tempting a certain fall. Perhaps it's an act of faith to embrace the unknown, superior to the transcend strokes of the traveling paintbrush under the keen eye of the color's creator.
Creator, yeah. Oh, oh,
Beautiful.
listen, you did. I know I caught you by surprise, but you
You
did
did,
very
because this is
well.
my first
No,
time
no, no. I
reading
love
it.
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm so proud of you. So,
Awesome. So
wanted
we
to.
got to come back because I have
Oh,
some
oh yeah.
poetry I love to
Oh yeah.
share
Oh yeah.
too.
Definitely.
So I'll be back.
We should. You'll be back more than once.
Okay, for
The
sure.
beauty is that I'm here all the time. We don't need any special arrangements. Just to call and say yes. I will and I want and all this, and we can create a kind of an ongoing dialogue that will be fit and also rightfully so should take place on a stage such as public access. And in the face of what we're talking, struggle for your cause, for my cause, for you people, for my people, for our people,
Yes,
this
yes.
stage cannot be more perfect to serve that journey and that agenda. And let me just say that we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this morning. Um, Wednesday morning, May 15th, year 2024, here with the Alolo Show. And thank you so much to my guest, Brenda Simmons. And I'm going to give you the last word.
I just want to thank you for this day, and I thank you for sharing. And I think most importantly, it's time for the conversation.
Yes, definitely, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I share these blessings with you. And again, it's a joy to know that there is a person out there that so instinctively blend with another person, i.e., you and I and you, and that it's so just natural and maybe it will serve as an example to people out there that it's
And when we have
possible.
the conversations, we learn that we have more in common.
Oh yes, this is the baby steps, the
Yes,
very very early stages, and how do they say solutions belong to God.
I love it.